This is my book review of The Golden Lily. The Golden Lily is the second book of the Bloodline series, which is the spin-off series to Vampire Academy. I'm going to lightly describe what happens in this book, and then I'm going to talk about why I love it so much. So here comes the book description. Sydney Sage is an alchemist, one of a group of humans who dabble in magic and serve to bridge the worlds of humans and vampires. Alchemists protect vampire secrets and human lives. Sydney would love to go to college, but instead she's been sent into hiding at a posh boarding school in Palm Springs, California. Tasked with protecting Moroi princess Jill Dragomir from assassins who want to throw the Moroi court into civil war. Formerly in disgrace, Sydney is now praised for her loyalty and obedience, and held up as the model of an exemplary alchemist. But the closer she grows to Jill, Eddie, and especially Adrian, the more she finds herself questioning her age-old alchemist beliefs, her idea of family, and her sense of what it truly means to belong. Her world becomes even more complicated when magical experiments show Sydney may hold the key to preventing becoming Strigoi, the fiercest vampires, the ones who don't die. But it is her fear of being just that, special, magical, powerful, that scares her more than anything. Equally daunting is her new romance with Brayden, a cute, brainy guy who seems to be her match in every way. Yet as perfect as he seems, Sydney finds herself being drawn to someone else, someone forbidden to her. When a shocking secret threatens to tear the vampire world apart, Sydney's loyalties are suddenly tested more than ever before. She wonders how she's supposed to strike a balance between the principles and dogmas she's been taught and what her instincts are telling her. Should she trust the alchemists or her heart? The reason I love this book so much is mainly because of Sydney Sage and Adrian Ivashkov, who are the main characters of this story. Technically, Sydney is the main character, but Adrian has the second biggest role. And they are the reason I like this so much. And the reason they are the reason is because I relate to them both on a very deep level. Sydney is a smart, brainy girl who just wants to learn, who loves books, and who is smart in every way but the emotional way. And Adrian is sarcastic, he's funny, he just has charisma dripping out of every cell of his body. But that's not what makes me like him so much. The reason he's my favorite character, my top 3 most favorite characters of all time in every book, in every movie, in every TV series, is because he is the only character I've ever found who is bipolar. Not the only one, but I've only seen like 5 bipolar characters when I haven't actively been looking for them. And the reason I love that so much is because I'm bipolar, and it's not often that I see someone who has my problems. One thing that Vampire Academy and Bloodlines does so well is its treatment of mental health and mental illnesses. The spirit users all have the backside to their magic being, if they use it too much, they go insane. Lissa had problems with depression, and she cut herself to deal with it. She had pretty significant mental problems. And Sonia basically committed suicide on herself to get away from her madness. But it's Adrian I relate to because we have the same illness. I haven't experienced everything Adrian has, and I don't have all of his coping mechanisms. But as he's going on and on about how spirit is turning him insane and the ways he doesn't trust himself, it really resonates with me because a lot of the things he's saying is things I've thought and said and felt. It's like looking in a mirror, and that's not something I experienced a lot in books and movies and TV series. He's just a breath of fresh air, and I want to breathe it in all I can. Adrian is wonderful. But it's also the combination of Sydney and Adrian together. They seem so different and yet are so similar. They're like the definition of opposites attract. Because they each have their strength in the other person's weaknesses. Sydney doesn't understand emotions very well. She's not impulsive. She doesn't do things without thinking. And Adrian is the complete opposite. He's ruled by emotions. He's impulsive. He does things just because of how much he enjoys it. And one thing they have going on in this book is that they're trying to better each other. Or is it in this book that they're doing it, or the next? Because Sydney has a borderline eating disorder. And she has a coffee addiction. So to help each other, they have this little pact where Sydney only gets 1 cup of coffee a day, and Adrian only gets 1 glass of alcohol a day. And I just think it's very cute how they together are bettering themselves. And the way that really makes them similar are their relationships to their fathers. Because Adrian and Sydney's fathers are both deeply disappointed in them. They are unpleasant human beings and vampire beings, respectively. And they both relate to this feeling of never being good enough. And although they deal with it in different ways, with Sydney trying to please him in every way she can, and Adrian trying to be the biggest disappointment he can be, they still have this understanding that despite all of their differences, no one else has. Put simply, they have good chemistry. And they also together form one of my favorite tropes within romance novels. And this is kind of a romance novel. The romance is like 50% of the book. The other 50 is vampire shenanigans. But my favorite trope is super smart girl that doesn't understand social interactions and doesn't understand when someone is flirting with them. And a guy who is just completely besotted with them and is flirting hard and just, it's so obvious to everyone else, but not to them, or at least not to the girl. And I don't know why I love it so much. It's just, aw, can't you see he likes you? No, that's not it. Yeah. And one of my favorite examples of this is chapter 14, which I'm going to give you a soundbite from now.
Myself that I needed to think about the guy inside, not out here. Adrian, I'm on a date. Why are you here? On my car. Sorry to interrupt, Sage. I wouldn't have been on your car if they'd let me into the dance, he said. A little of his earlier awe had faded, and he relaxed into a more typical Adrian pose, leaning back against Latte. At least he was standing and less likely to do damage. Yeah, they generally frown on letting 20-something guys into high school events. What did you want? To talk to you. I waited for him to elaborate, but the only response I received was a brief flash of lightning above. It was Saturday, and I'd been around campus all day, during which he could have easily called. He'd known the dance was tonight. Then, inhaling the smell of alcohol that hung in the air around him, I knew nothing he did should really surprise me tonight. Why couldn't it have been tomorrow? I asked. Did you really have to come here tonight? And I frowned and looked around. How did you even get here? I took the bus, he said, almost proudly. A lot easier getting here than to Carleton. Carleton College was where he took art classes, and without his own transportation, he'd come to rely heavily on mass transit, something he'd never done before in his life. I'd been hoping Sonia or Demetria dropped him off, meaning they'd pick him up again. But of course, that wouldn't happen. Neither one of them would have brought a drunken Adrian here. So I guess I have to take you home then? I said. Hey, I got myself here. I'll get myself home. He started to take out a cigarette, and I gave him a stern head shake. Don't, I said sharply. With a shrug, he put the pack away. And I have to take you home. It's going to storm soon. I'm not going to make you walk in the rain. Another flash of lightning emphasized my words, and a faint breeze stirred the fabric of my dress. Hey, he said. I don't want to be an Sydney? Braden came striding across the parking lot. Everything okay? No, not really. I'm going to have to leave for a little bit, I said. I have to give my brother a ride home. Will you be okay waiting? It shouldn't be that long. I felt bad even suggesting it. Braden didn't really know anyone at my school. Maybe you could find Trey. Sure, said Braden uncertainly. Or I can come with you. No, I said quickly, not wanting him and drunken Adrian in the car. Just go back and have fun. Nice toga, Adrian told Braden. It's a chiton, said Braden. It's Greek. Right, I forgot that was tonight's theme. Adrian gave Braden an appraising look, glanced over at me, and then turned back to Braden. So, what do you think of our girls' ensemble tonight? Pretty amazing, huh? Like Cinderella. Or maybe a Greek Cinderella. There's really not much about it that's truly Greek, said Braden. I winced. I knew he didn't mean to be insensitive, but his words stung a little. The dress is historically inaccurate. I mean, it's a very nice dress, but the jewelry's anachronistic, and the fabric's nothing that ancient Greek women would have had. Certainly not that color either. What about those other Greek women? Asked Adrian. The flashy, smart ones. His forehead wrinkled, as though it were taking every ounce of his brain to come up with the word he wanted. And to my astonishment, he did. The hetairy. I honestly hadn't believed he'd retained anything from our conversation in San Diego. I tried not to smile. The hetairy. Braden was even more astonished than I was. He gave me a scrutinizing look. Yes, I suppose, if such materials were hypothetically possible in that era, that this is something you'd expect to find on a hetera instead of the average Greek matron. And they were prostitutes, right? Asked Adrian. These hetairy? Some were, agreed Braden. Not all. I think the usual term is courtesan. Adrian was completely deadpan. So, you're saying my sister's dressed like a prostitute? Braden eyed my dress. Well, yes, if we're still speaking in hypothetical. You know what? I interrupted. We need to go. It's going to rain any minute now. I'll take Adrian home and meet you back here, okay? I refused to let Adrian continue to play whatever game he had going to torment Braden, and by extension, me. I'll text you when I'm on my way back. Sure, said Braden.
Chapter 14 is amazing. It is my favorite chapter of the book, but the whole book is filled with amazing content like that. And I really like the way the narrator does Sydney's voice and Adrian's voice and everyone's voice. You know, sometimes the audiobook just improves everything about the text. They find the perfect voice for each character and just make it perfect. Because every character Richelle Mead writes has these little quirks that make them memorable. Sydney's love for coffee, ancient Greek, and just these small little details that make the story feel alive, that makes the character alive. Adrian's love for slushies and Jill's constant rambling, and how no one can remember Sydney's boyfriend's name. It's just... it's fun and it's quirky. Oh, and I can't forget the funniest line in the entire book. And Evangeline knocked him out like he was a motivational speaker. That quote makes perfect sense in context, and if you want that context, you have to read the books. The book. Well, you kind of have to read Bloodlines, the first book, before you go with this one. I mean, you don't have to, but you probably should. And yeah, Evangeline is great. Jill is great. Eddie's great. Dimitri's always great. It's just greatness all around. And Mrs. Treviliger, I never remember if she has married or unmarried title before her name. She's great. Oh, why do I say great so much? Because it is great, that's why. So, anyway, that was The Golden Lily by Richelle Mead, narrated by Emily Schaefer. It's a great book that you should definitely read if you haven't already. There is a fandom on Reddit, which you could check out if you want. It's not the most active one, but it is. And if you're late to the party with the book, no shame in that. You will be accepted in any case. Bye!